Welcome to another episode on the Home Tech Talk podcast. My name is Jake.
And my name is Aidan.
On this episode, we'll be covering the Stereonet HIFI Show down in Melbourne. I unfortunately wasn't able to make it. However, Aidan went down and had a chat with a few of the guys at the show.
Yeah, in this episode, I was lucky enough to catch up with Claver Harper from National AV Solutions and Andrew Poole from Home Theatre Engineering. And we discussed all things Barco, including the projectors that were on display at the show, as well as covering all the system solutions that are available from MadVR video scaler.
Yeah, so we hope you enjoy this episode, and please don't forget to like and subscribe to keep up to date.
Thank you for joining us. Thank you for your time today. We've got Claver from NAVS,
National AV Solutions.
and Andrew from Home Theatre Engineering.
Absolutely.
So we're going to cover today, hopefully learning a little bit about Barco and MadVR video scaler. So Claver, do you want to give us a bit of a rundown on, how you came to look after Barco and sort of what the product is and who the market, I guess, is for Barco projectors?
Sure. Well, Barco is a name that's been around a long time, over 84 years, in fact. So a lot of people will know Barco, and many people will not know Barco, obviously. A lot of young people these days maybe wouldn't know it that well. But they started life building high-end radios for the American market, namely, and that's where the name Barco comes from. The products are actually built in Belgium, but the Barco stands for the Belgium and American Radio Company.
Right.
So that's BAR, CO. So they started about 84, 85 years ago doing high-end radios, and from there they've basically been involved in the audio and visual business, right through to today. Mainly they're probably better known now for their video product, which is projectors, LED walls, medical displays, control room displays and that sort of stuff. But their heritage really is in the digital cinema market. And this is where they are a world leader in DCI projectors that go into all the commercial cinemas all around the world. So there's a good chance that when you go into a commercial cinema to watch the latest blockbuster movie, in Australia, it's probably a better than 70% chance you're watching it on a Barco, and worldwide, it's a better than 55% chance you're seeing it on a Barco. So they very much have the lion's share market around the world for DCI cinema projectors. So from that heritage, they've developed what we call Barco Residential. And these are projectors that are taking the heritage and a lot of the performance and, qualities and features of those high-end machines, but specifically designing them for home cinema, the residential market. There is a big difference. You don't just go and throw a big, bright commercial, projector in a room, in a home theatre. You don't throw a big commercial DCI projector into a home theatre, They are different. There's a lot of differences, particularly with some of the things like contrast levels and brightness levels and the type of colours that we want to get and we want to achieve in home theatre. So they started Barco Residential probably about 6 years ago now, and the product has really taken the market, by storm. Really, they are high end. We don't pretend that they're anything other than that. You have some really good brands out there in the consumer market, and that includes Epson, BenQ, Sony, JVC, all good products. And they all do the job well, and they sit in a certain market space. And then Barco Residential really probably comes in where the others stop. So we have about 7 or 8 models in the range, starting with the Medea, which is a 16:9 laser projector. Then we go through to the Bragi, the Boulder, the Hodor, and the Njord. Then we have the Freya, and then we have the Thor. So, lot to take in there. But essentially, the Medea is our entry-level product, and it starts at about $40,000, and it's a 16:9 laser projector with about 7,500 lumens coming out the front end. Great machine, but we tend to use that machine in for, say, media rooms or TVs. People want a big 130, 140-inch TV rather than, say, a dedicated cinema. That's a great choice for that type of thing. With the Bragi and above, we offer both a 16:9 and a unique CinemaScope projector product. No one else in the market does what Barco do with their CinemaScope projectors. So these are essentially projectors that can natively display a 237 CinemaScope picture on a CinemaScope screen without the aid of an anamorphic lens or even processing. That's basically all on board. They do aspect ratio control, so these projectors can deliver full 4K in 16:9, and they actually go out to over 5K in CinemaScope. So that's available basically in Bragi, Boulder, Hodor, and Njord. When we head up into the bigger models of Freya and Thor, we are actually drawing a lot more on the digital cinema inspiration, and those products are taken almost directly from the digital cinema market. The Freya is it's actually a 189:1 projector. It's utilising the full 4K DCI chipset, and it's RGB laser. So it's an absolute stunning piece of engineering, and it's just a world-class projector. And that is actually almost, I'd say 90% of what goes into the commercial cinemas. And it's got, but we use different things. Like we have a different media block, so it accepts our consumer sources like Blu-ray players and Apple TV and Foxtel boxes, where obviously on a DCI projector you don't have any of that stuff. They don't do that. They don't process it. And of course we have special high contrast lenses that we utilise in those machines for home theatre. Then after the Freya we go right up to the Thor, which is what we call a 6P laser. So that's got dual banks of RGB lasers, and it comes with its own refrigerator.
Yeah.
But it's an enormous machine that would go into, if someone's building, I don't know, maybe the Prince of Brunei wants to build a cinema, 50-seat cinema, 60-seat cinema. They want the best picture available, and they want a screen that's 10, 15 meters wide. Then that's the type of thing you're looking at there. You wouldn't put a Thor into, say, a standard everyday, home cinema like we all have
like
at home.
An auditorium type.
Yeah, slightly
space.
more auditorium type of thing. Yeah. But certainly all the products under that, Freya, Njord, Hodor, and Boulder and Bragi, they're all at different price points. They're all different brightness levels. They all do things a little bit differently, and they're all designed for different scenarios. So obviously, Bragi's, Boulders will fit into probably 90% of home theatre situations. Then Hodors, Njords, and Freyas would fit into something that's a little bit more special, something a bit more like a private cinema, because you really need a separate bio box, or you need a big room that you can put a hush box in, or we can put these projectors actually up into people's ceilings and use drop-down mirrors to, pretty funky stuff. But they take a lot of planning, a lot of design to deliver those sort of machines.
I can certainly vouch for the performance of the Freya, though.
Yeah, well, Andrew and Enzo over at Home Theatre Engineering in Perth actually have a Freya on display in their room, and once you see that, your life is changed forever.
Yep.
Right. You just walk away going, almost you can't explain what you see there.
It's like nothing I've ever seen before, and I walk past it every day, and if the door to the cinema's open, it still stops me in my tracks. It's you know.
What is it in that sort of picture? Is it like the black levels, the depth of field, like the field of view? That's kind of the thing that I noticed going from like the entry level projectors through the mid tier and, you know, into the high end stuff, is that it just seems like the picture becomes almost 3-dimensional, and you can really sort of get deep into the video aspect of what you're watching.
So there's a bit of a funny story there. When we were setting up our room, we had a red and green test pattern, one of the test patterns that's built into the Freya. And I was sitting there, and I've been calibrating for nearly 20 years, and I looked at the image and I thought that picture is actually behind, the red was behind the green. And I mean, I built the room, but I still had to physically go up and touch the screen because of the amazing image on the screen, because I honestly couldn't comprehend what I was looking at. The answer to your question is several things. The lenses are not like, you know, normal projector lenses. These are massively high-grade optics. They are phenomenal. So you have this incredible optical path to start with. The other big secret, and we put a video on this on our YouTube channel, is you'll see a lot of companies, TVs and projectors all talk about, we do 98% of DCI P3. For those who are listening to this, there are three predominant color spaces. Rec 709, which is what our CRT TVs were. There's DCI P3, which is sort of the Digital Cinema Initiative. That's their color space. And then there's BT 2020, which is where we're all trying to go to. That's sort of the holy grail at the moment. When we look at those charts, you've probably seen them online. It's called the CIE chart. It's kind of a splash of color in a sort of an elliptical shape. So you have Rec 709 sitting inside that, and most projectors do that really well. And Rec 709 is very much an established standard. Then you go to DCI P3. So what you'll see companies saying is, we do 98% of DCI P3, or we do 98% of BT 2020. The problem is, what they're talking about here is in terms of saturation, right? But that's only a part of the picture. The model is actually not two-dimensional, it's three-dimensional. And so if you looked at a cube in a volume in space, what you're then looking at is not just the saturation, but you're looking at the luminance of each color, right? So we understand the luminance of white or black, because no luminance is black and a lot of luminance is white, made up of red, green, blue, of course. But what people don't understand is, if you could see the 3D model of XYZ product, what you'd see is that the red, green and blue, I'm waving my hands around on a podcast, that's not helping, but you'll see that the red, green and blue drops off. They don't have the luminance, right? So when you go to this level of projector, you have all of that red, green, blue, cyan, magenta, yellow luminance. It has power across the spectrum. And so as your colors move towards a red or a green, that luminance doesn't drop off. It's not something we're really aware of until you see a screen that has this. Right. And then there's that certain something. It's just like, oh my gosh, this is spectacular. Yeah. The other thing you've got is light output. So if you can get a lot of light on the screen, providing it's good quality, and then you can get black, and with these projectors you get exceptional blacks, then you have this massive dynamic range as well. So your whites are really white. So a flash of light, you know, I don't know, the glint off a car mirror, or reflection of sunlight off a drop of water or something, that can be at really bright levels, as it is in real life, you know, when you get that flash off a mirror. If you can't generate that white level, then we lose some realism, and the same thing with the black. So great optics, phenomenal dynamic range, full color luminance in your primaries and secondaries, and that's mostly the magic formula, you know, and that's what you're paying for, and that's what these projectors deliver, and the DCI projectors especially are just stunning. And you know, so we run our projector very quickly. Most cinemas are 14-foot lamets, roughly. That's Rec 709. Most cinemas in Australia are 14.7. Then if you go to IMAX runs about 50% brighter, so that's about 20-foot lamets, 20 to 21. And then Dolby Cinema in America. I don't know if we've got any in Australia. That runs at about 32 foot Lamberts. IMAX will do HDR. Dolby will do Dolby Cinema, will do Dolby Vision, and BT 2020. And they're using 2 projectors to drive that. And this is the really exciting thing for us at this table, is that in your home now, we can exceed the capabilities of pretty much any cinema in the world. So if you know, whereas a few years ago we couldn't do that, you know, a lot of people's memories, and I think this is important to point out, is we often, Claver and I, talk to people, and their idea of home cinema is somewhere between TV and soundbar and a room with a projector in it. And most of our memories are of the old 720p projectors. A lot of people don't, I think, understand that now, should you want to, you have access to a cinema in your home that not only meets anything out there, but exceeds it. I'm talking with an expert in America, John Bishop, and we're actually going to be talking about this because there has been a game change, and you know, Claver's relationship with Barco and those products have enabled that now, and we are now in a whole new paradigm. So that's kind of the secret sauce.
And this is where the discussion of proper private cinema comes into play. So these are not what people expect or are used to. Like, I still get people go, oh no, I don't think I want a projector, you know, they're hard to see and it all looks a bit cloudy and whatever else. Like, they're considering from what they've seen 15, 20 years ago, and like, if the room wasn't black, like tripping over everything, black, you could see almost nothing on the screen. That's kind of like their memory of a home cinema. So.
True.
And that, I think that's problematic, and I think it's up to all of us to try to let people understand that, you know, we have come a long way in a relatively short time. Yeah. And, you know, the room in Perth that Claver's talking about is a testament to that. And, you know, even for ourselves, and we work with cinemas every day, but there's, you know, each year there's been a new reference, there's been a new level. And now that we've been introduced to the Freya, you know, it literally takes my breath away. You know? Right. So it's exciting times, and we now have the product readily available to achieve those results.
Is it true that, like, so obviously people listening or watching will be able to probably tell that we're at a hi-fi show, judging by that enormous amount of background noise. But there's a 70-foot Lamberts coming out of that on that screen in the Cricks room at the moment. Is that what I heard Tony tell me before?
I'm not sure. I'd have to check with Tony on that.
No, it's definitely not 70.
It's not 70. No. It's probably 40-ish, maybe 50-ish.
Well, I'd say, because I know our cinema's 50, and that's pushing the absolute limit.
Yeah. So 70 would hurt your eyes. Yeah. Would really hurt your eyes.
70 is painful. 50 in our room is just on the verge of being, you know, arguably comfortable. And I'm actually possibly thinking about dialing it back a foot Lambert or two. I would say the Cricks cinema here, with all deference to Cricks, is probably around 32 foot Lamberts. Right. But yeah, you know, but that's still brilliant. That's in line with the Dolby cinema. So.
Yeah. It's the projector that's in there, which is the new 4K Nord laser projector. It's capable of a lot more than that. Right. It's 12,000 lumens, and I think we're running it at about 50% of that illumination.
Tony's done a great job.
So we've dialed it right back down, because at full illumination, we could easily probably get 70 to 90 foot Lamberts, but that's eye-watering. Yeah. People can't sit through that. Yeah. You know, it would really be uncomfortable after about 10 minutes. Yeah. And look, you know, our TVs do that, and people might go, oh, but TVs are, you know, bright, they're 1,000 nit, 1,500 nit, whatever, but they're a very small screen. You know, we're only watching that on 50-inch, 65-inch. When you start seeing 70, 90 foot Lamberts on a 180-inch screen, that's a whole nother level. And that becomes very uncomfortable, you know.
I see people give me feedback about their TVs versus when they're looking at projection systems, that they are very fatiguing and they do become uncomfortable to watch for extended periods. So if you're watching a projector, it's a much more relaxing and enjoyable experience as opposed to watching something on a TV screen.
I think there's a really good point here that needs to be made. First of all, just back to the light output, the other issue is that the more light that you put in a room with a projector, the more destructive that light becomes.
So the contrast.
So you have ambient light now reflecting back onto the screen and starting to crush your blacks.
Yeah.
So you have to be careful about design of the room, and getting over enthusiastic and blasting too much light means that you're not comfortable watching it. It's not actually realistic anymore, and you've got this incredible white light or bright lights on the screen, but you are now starting to reflect too much light back on, and you're actually starting to destroy the black level. So that's an important thing. What was the other point? The other point was
just the nature of watching it and not getting visually fatigued.
Yeah. Sorry. So here's the interesting thing. Everything in life, when I look at you, you are a reflective light source.
Yeah.
We've got some lights in here. They're emissive. So the big difference between TVs and projectors, and the reason I think we all love projectors, is TVs are an emissive light source. So it's a bit like watching a cat walk down the road, but it's actually glowing.
Yeah.
And that's one of the reasons TVs have a little bit of a harshness to them, because they're an emissive light source. Whereas a projector is a reflective light source. It's a softer light, and it's more in tune with what we see with our eyes every day.
In the natural world.
Yeah. So, I think that contributes a lot to it. And for me personally, the idea of actually sitting in a cinema with the light beam, and I don't know, for those who are old enough to remember people smoking in cinemas and that sort of, that really kind of cinematic feel of the swirl of the light going through the cigarette smoke and stuff like that. There's a romantic sort of attachment to cinema as well.
Well, what we're also trying to achieve, even though we can do these massive light outputs and, big nit numbers or foot lamp numbers, we're still trying to achieve a cinematic experience.
Very much.
Okay, and that's the beauty of screens and projectors, is that we want to reproduce the director's intent, and that's a cinematic intent. So we want it to look like a movie still. When it starts to get too bright or too punchy, it then starts to look like old VHS video, and that's not what we want. And that's what TVs tend to do, Even badly calibrated OLEDs can look a little bit too like old video rather than a natural picture. So we're trying to get a cinematic look. We're trying to get it to obviously pop with colours, but not be over the top. And we're trying to get that beautiful, smooth film image happening, because that's what we enjoy seeing. We're analog beings. We're not digital beings.
Yeah.
If we were digital, we could wind it all up. Wind the clock up to 11, and we'd all go, "That's great." But we're not. We don't like that as human beings. So even though we're surrounded by digital technology and digital projectors and digital formats, we're still analog. And we like it to look like analog. We like it to sound like analog, But all this new technology actually, funny enough, helps us do that better than it ever has, which is sort of an irony, in fact. But it actually does work,
Right. And for those who have thought, the Freya's definitely the projector for me, but it's just not quite enough. I want to take that to the next level. Where do we go? We
go to Thor.
No, I thought.
Well, there's actually
I was sort
Freya
of suggesting that we might be looking at some sort of video processing from something like MadVR.
Oh, well, absolutely. Okay, so MadVR. Yeah, so MadVR. Wow, what can we tell you about that? MadVR is, as the word says, it's insane. It's a state-of-the-art video processor that's okay. A bit of the backstory. MadVR's been around for quite some time, and they do a bit of free software for computers and the gaming guys and all that sort of stuff. And they do that because they want to get feedback, and it's a bit of a marketing thing, but it's also a bit of a testing arena for them, So they rely on a lot of feedback from those professional gamers and all that sort of stuff, all those guys, to come back to them and say, we like this, we like that, we don't like this, we don't like that. So a few years ago, they decided to, dip their hand into the home theatre market, and they've actually built hardware now, which employs their MadVR video processing software, and it's sort of been a bit of a revelation, because even with Barco, you know, what the Barco does is incredible, and they do stuff that no other projector does, and the image is, you know, I'm not trying to be biased here, but the image is certainly superior to most of the consumer level products out there. Then I couldn't think it could get better than that. But then you put a MadVR onto any projector, whether it's Barco, Sony, JVC, doesn't matter. It just does things so much better, because if you go back to the principles of stereo, it's like I have an integrated stereo system. Okay, that's nice. Yeah, great. Get nice sound out of that, and I'm happy with that. But the next level above that is, okay, I'm going to buy a separate preamp and a separate power amp. Wow, the performance is, you know, next level. It's similar to that. So what we're doing is we're having a separate box do all the heavy lifting in the video processing. So it's taking 1080i, even DVD, you know, 576i, it's taking 4K, and it's processing that to the absolute best it can be before it goes to the display. Yeah. So the displays always work best when they have to do as little work as possible. When they're fed something native, like a pristine 4K image, that's what they're going to display really, really well. So that's what MadVR is doing. Yeah. It's basically, you know, recalculating, upscaling, cleaning, you know, repacking, pixels for pixel perfection, and then it delivers that to the display. And then on top of that, it's got a whole bunch of really nutty features like instantaneous aspect ratio control. And Andrew can talk about that a little bit more. The boys have done a video on that, which is really impressive. It also, so it does your dynamic tone mapping, okay, which is very important for HDR, because HDR is all about the highlights. It's all about, you know, the bright scenes in the movie and you know, giving them detail and, you know, not trying to crush the blacks at the same time, but highlighting that top end. So you've got your dynamic tone mapping. You've got the upscaling, as I said, the aspect ratio control. You've got masking. You've got blanking on board, so you can use a 16:9 projector for a scope screen. You've got management for, yeah, if you're watching, what's it called? I've forgotten. Foreign movies, subtitles.
Subtitles, yeah.
Subtitle management. So, for instance, you can have a 16:9 projector. If you zoom that out to fill a 2:5 screen, all your subtitles are going to be below the screen, on the wall or in the frame. So MadVR manages that for you. So it pops all the subtitles back into the image area. Wow. Okay, which is really, really cool for a lot of people who love to watch, you know, kung fu movies or Bollywood movies or French movies where you've got subtitles, and that's a real pain to manage that sometimes, particularly for scope. If you're trying to just zoom or use an anamorphic lens, it doesn't work so well. So MadVR fixes up all those problems, and then it can be calibrated. And I'm now going to hand it over to Andrew, because that's above my pay grade.
Yeah, I think like the automatic aspect ratio isn't something to be understated either, because that's becoming a bigger problem rather than less of a problem.
Yeah.
Like we're getting more aspect ratios now that are harder to manage in a single fixed screen than ever before. Almost.
So
they are than ever before.
The MadVR absolutely resolves that outright as a problem. And I was talking to Claver earlier today, and what I said to him was, I said, I think there's a hidden capability, not a capability, a hidden feature of the MadVR that often gets overlooked, and that is, up till recently, anyone watching a movie at home, you've got your primary, perhaps cinema owner, you know, dad, mum, whoever it is, and they can operate the cinema. So when the screen, the movie changes, they can press a button. They know, I need to zoom, I need to change the aspect ratio, I need to make it wide, I need to do this or that. But then the rest of the family just have no idea what to do when. Yeah. And this has been a bugbear for cinema, home cinema, for a long time. Yes, it comes under the veil of the aspect ratio management or nonlinear stretch, which I'll talk about. But ultimately, to me, this sets home cinema free, because what happens is you now just, like you would on a TV, hit play or watch, and the MadVR takes care of all of that.
Yeah.
So your customers now, the homeowner, doesn't even think about, that issue. I've got a customer at the moment, he's got a projector and he's going, my button that goes to 16:9 is not working. And I'm like, how do I fix that button? And I said, buy a MadVR. So, it takes that away, and it's a problem that's plagued us for a long time. And anyone who's worked with, 16:9 projectors, especially with scope screens or anamorphic lenses, knows this,
Or just lens memory projectors.
Yep.
Like I've had clients watching, they'll use the cinema and then they'll forget after 2 months how to move the lens back, and they'll end up watching on a CinemaScope screen set with the lens position for 16:9, and they'll be watching a scope movie. So like in the space of a huge CinemaScope screen, they've got a small CinemaScope image in the middle.
They've literally got letterbox.
Devastating.
Yeah. So the MadVR literally blows that problem away. We don't ever have to worry about that again. The customer then has one more decision to make, and that is, shall I watch my content going forward with the aspect ratio changes, which the MadVR will do automatically, or am I going to watch everything with nonlinear stretch? And that's a decision I leave to the customers. I'm a cinema purist. I kind of like to watch it the way it's intended, but we have a lot of customers now who just want to watch it with this nonlinear stretch. And what that means is, if you're watching a 16:9 movie, but you've paid for a scope screen, and you go, well, I want to fill that real estate, then this thing very cleverly will then take that image out, but in a way that you can't perceive any distortion, and you haven't lost anything off the image. It's quite phenomenal, and as Claver said, you can see that in our video. So that kind of covers two features. That's the aspect ratio capability and the non-linear stretch, which comes down to image management and making your home cinema seamless. So that's the first thing. With regard to the calibration, so calibration's changing. Some TVs now and some projectors will accept what they call a LUT. It stands for a lookup table. And instead of us as calibrators going in and just adjusting sliders and buttons on a projector, we actually map the entire output of that projector. We measure thousands and thousands of light points, and then that's turned into a table, which then, depending on the process, is calculated so that it is adjusted to fill the light space you want, say DCI P3. And that table is effectively then fed to the MadVR or the projector or TV. So we're hearing more and more about LUT management. But what it means is that we can get pinpoint accurate calibration out of these products. So that's another capability of the MadVR, and you can actually create different LUTs. So I could create a LUT. If they like watching black and white movies, we could do that. If they want to watch Hollywood blockbusters, I can do that. The MadVR can even be set up with a preset to sense the input and then switch and do all these kind of things. So
you could have a Foxtel one versus a 4K content one.
You could. You probably wouldn't, because most of them are pretty consistent, right. And it takes a long time to generate that LUT, but it's certainly possible.
So I can understand this for the simple people like myself, you're basically taking the capability of the projector in the room and making sure that the content is, the MadVR in between the source and the display takes into consideration what the source is outputting and what the projector is capable of.
Absolutely. Yep.
And just says, this is how we translate what you have to what you can do.
Yes, absolutely. And, what you see then is a kind of a new instruction set going to the projector, and that normally extracts every drop of capability out of it. And we see that dramatically. We've got another room it's got a MadVR and it's got a Barco Bragi in it. And when we aren't are using the LUT, we can see the difference. It's quite obvious, especially in terms of graduation of colours and detail and darks. But then you have all the features of the MadVR on top of that, which allow you, if you're a bit of a hobbyist, you can go in there and you can make all these fine adjustments and tunes and adjust shadow detail and everything else. So it does everything that Claver said it does. It does the LUT management. The greatest thing now for us as people supplying our customers, though, is as far as I'm aware, it's the first ever video processor that's actually online, and that means that the customers, first of all, can do a firmware update I've measured it, it's about 20 seconds. It tells you there's a firmware update. You go, yes, if I want it, or you can look up the details of the firmware update. You go, and it does it, restarts. It's done in 20 seconds. The big advantage for us, people sitting at this table, is with our clients, if they ring up and they can't remember which button to push, if they need to push a button, which is rare, or if there's something else going on or they think there's a problem, I can log in and I can not only make adjustments to the unit, I can actually see what they're watching. Right? I actually get delivered the image that's flowing through the MadVR, and then I can hit buttons on my computer and I get the menu come up and they can see the menu. I can see what is going through, so I can see the image they're watching, and then I can make adjustments. And if I need to, I can say, look, can you just take some video of the screens to make sure that it's obviously fitting the screen properly. But I can coach people. I can train them in the use of their unit. I can change settings in the unit, and I can support them and troubleshoot. There's nothing else. There's nothing on the market that I'm aware of that can do that. So in terms of customer support, in terms of capability, it just, it's standing on its own in the middle of a very large desert at the moment,
I know, like, we've had discussions previously regarding, like, just reliability of, like, when you're pushing the boundaries with video on these things, has a tendency to be quite temperamental. Is this thing, I mean, this is a stupid question because I know that the answer is going to be yes, because you wouldn't use it otherwise, but it's pretty reliable. Like, I've had experience with video processing in the past, and, I switch between sources. I go from my Blu-ray player to my Apple TV, and then, I've got no image and I have to restart the video processor, and then I get the image back, and it's just a really temperamental sort of thing when you're pushing the envelope in terms of video processing like that. This thing is, I mean, it's software based, right? So it's running on a pretty powerful machine. Yeah,
look, so far, so good. That said, nothing is ever 100% foolproof,
especially with HDMI.
Yeah, HDMI, it's probably it probably offers as many problems as it does benefits. HDMI, single cable runs, all that sort of stuff, fantastic, blah blah blah. But HDMI is just one of the most glitchiest things that's ever been introduced into our industry. But that's the way it is, and we have to handle that and manage it. But that's where the specialist comes into the foreground. That's what we're here for. We're here to manage that, manage expectations, and manage issues when they happen. But I've found that the MadVR units and the Barco units have been exceptionally reliable and very rarely break down. Once you've got it up and running, there's always in setup and plugging things in and getting things calibrated. That's sort of when you run into a lot of the problems, but that's what people like Andrew and you are there for. You fix those problems. You make sure you deliver, a working, result, something that the client's happy with. And after that, really, if you're choosing good products and you're running good cables and you've got good management in place, things should run pretty smoothly for people.
I think the old saying of garbage in, garbage out applies here too. If you just bought a MadVR and stuck it in your system, you may be looking for problems, because if you've got sources, for example, NVIDIA Shield TV, and it's feeding all sorts of constantly changing signals all the time, then the MadVR, because of what it has to do, has to take all of those signals and then turn them into, believe it or not, standard dynamic range SDR BT2020. And so it's constantly looking at the incoming signal. Now, if you're constantly feeding it conflicting information or constantly changing sources all the time, then you've got a problem. So what you need to do is, when you're installing any of these products, it doesn't matter, a Barco projector, a MadVR, it doesn't matter. You have to make sure that your whole process, your whole chain is set up properly. So you want the right settings in your Apple TV, you want the right settings in your NVIDIA Shield, you want the right settings on your, disc player or your kaleidoscope or whatever it is you're using, and you want to set it up properly so that you're giving the right information to everything else down the chain. You get that right, you get your cables right, you get everything right, you do all your firmware updates, you make sure everything's, starting fresh from scratch, you've power cycled everything, you will find that the thing will run flawlessly. We have no problems with the MadVR in our cinemas. Where you see problems is not with that hardware, you see problems with the configuration. And, yes, at this level, when you're playing with this sort of stuff, you really do want to get someone who knows what they're doing to make sure that you've got all your ducks in a row.
Yeah.
If you've got that, I can pretty much guarantee, hand on heart, that you're not going to have any problems.
That's exactly what we needed to hear. So in order for people to get their ducks in a row, if anyone is looking for this type of solution, Andrew from Home Theatre Engineering, you're in Perth, but you do service the greater continent for some
We
part?
do. We're working internationally now, New Zealand, the US, Canada. So we are supplying product and services far and wide now, which has been an exceptional experience. And that just harkens back to the fact that if you're going to do that sort of thing, then you have to make sure that your equipment is something that you can service and maintain for your clients, either locally or at a distance, and hence why we trust this equipment.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Anyone looking to get into those brands, Claver, NAV?
Yeah, well, we work with a national dealer base, so we have dealers like Andrew and Enzo in Perth, and we have dealers in Melbourne, Sydney, Brisbane, all over the country. We have service centres based in all the major capitals. We're pretty lucky in Australia in a funny way. 90% of our population live in 5 cities.
Yeah.
so it's pretty good. So yeah, if people are interested in Barco and MadVR, we've got guys all over the country who can help them out, to purchase the product, but also, as Andrew said, more importantly, install the product correctly, get it all set up correctly, and then manage those expectations and look after the customers. That's what specialists are all about. We're not just there to sell boxes and take people's money, although, yes, we do that, but we are very, very interested and committed to make sure that our clients, when they're buying this expensive high-end gear, they're being looked after. They're buying with confidence.
Yeah.
They know that they're not going to be left hanging in the wind with an issue that no one wants to talk about.
I think as a last word, what I want to say is, in partnership with Claver, what I've found is with the right people behind you, I know that Claver is we are, and a lot of the other dealers are, we are passionately and ethically committed to getting people the very best picture and the very best sound, and we'll move heaven and earth to do it. And I think customers need to know now there are people out there who really do genuinely care about this.
Yeah. And I know you're a real stickler for that, finishing a project to 100%. We've had many conversations about that being the requirement of any project, irrespective of how good or how high quality or whatever it is. Whatever the client is doing, it needs to be finished 100%.
It's about fairness, to be honest. If you have invested X dollars, then I think you are rightly entitled to X performance. What we've seen historically is people have spent X dollars, but they're getting B performance. And that's kind of what turned my crank originally and sort of got me going, because we now have rooms capable of this amazing in performance, but you have to get them set up. And so, that's our mission. If you've spent, doesn't matter what it is, but if you spend X dollars, you deserve to get all of the performance out of your room that you've paid for.
Yep, I agree totally. Well, cool. Thank you very much for your time, gentlemen.
Great
Absolute
to be
pleasure.
here. Thank you.
Thank you.
I've
Thank
learned
you
a
very
lot.
much.
Thanks.
Cheers.
Well, that concludes our coverage from the Stereonet HIFI Show. We hope you enjoyed our content. Please don't forget to like and subscribe to keep up to date.
And don't forget to follow us on social media at Home Tech Talk.
And we'll return to our regular schedule shortly.